The music pulsed through the downtown loft as I navigated through clusters of guests, holding 2 glasses of wine. Sarah's birthday party was in full swing, our friends, her co-workers, people I'd never met before, all celebrating her 35th year. The exposed brick walls seemed to vibrate with laughter and conversation, the kind of electric energy that only comes when alcohol flows freely and inhibitions dissolve. I found her near the makeshift bar, her cheeks flushed pink, her eyes bright with that particular sparkle that told me she'd already had too much. 3 empty cocktail glasses sat abandoned on the counter behind her. She was laughing at something her colleague Jennifer was saying, that full-bodied laugh that had made me fall in love with her 12 years ago. "Here," I said, offering her the wine. "Maybe switch to this? It's lighter." She waved me off with a giggle. "I'm fine, honey. It's my birthday. Live a little." Her words blurred slightly at the edges. I exchanged a knowing look with Jennifer, who gave me a sympathetic smile. We both knew Sarah's relationship with alcohol was complicated. Not problematic, exactly, but unpredictable. 3 drinks and she'd be singing karaoke. 4, and she might cry over a commercial. 5 or more. That was uncharted territory we usually tried to avoid. "Just pace yourself," I suggested gently, but she'd already turned back to Jennifer, animated about some office drama I couldn't follow. An hour later, I was cornered by Sarah's college friend David, enduring a lengthy explanation of his new cryptocurrency investment strategy, when I realized I hadn't seen my wife in a while. I scanned the room, searching for her familiar burgundy dress among the crowd. Nothing. "Excuse me," I interrupted David mid-sentence about blockchain technology. "Have you seen Sarah?" He looked around vaguely. "Not for a bit, actually. Check the balcony." The balcony was empty except for 2 guys smoking and arguing about sports. I checked the bathroom, occupied, but not by her according to the voice that called out. The kitchen, the hallway, even the coat room. My chest tightened slightly. The loft wasn't that big. Looking for Sarah, her friend Monica appeared at my elbow. I saw her heading toward the back stairwell maybe 20 minutes ago. She looked kind of upset. Upset? About what? Monica shrugged. No idea. She was talking to Thomas, from her book club, and then she just sort of hurried off. I figured she needed air or the bathroom. 20 minutes. In a back stairwell. I pushed through the crowd more urgently now, that familiar spike of worry that every spouse knows, the one that lives somewhere between concerned and panicked. The back stairwell door was unmarked, meant for emergencies. I pushed it open to find concrete steps leading both up and down, harsh fluorescent lighting a stark contrast to the warm party glow. Empty. "Sarah." I called out, my voice echoing. Nothing. I was about to check downstairs when I heard footsteps from above. Slow, uncertain footsteps. And then she appeared around the landing, and my relief immediately transformed into confusion. Her mascara had run in dark streaks down her face. Her hair, which had been perfectly styled earlier, now hung loose and disheveled. But it was her expression that stopped me cold, equal parts anguish and confusion, like someone waking from a nightmare they couldn't quite remember. "Sarah, what happened? Where were you?" She stared at me as if she wasn't quite sure who I was for a moment. Then her eyes filled with fresh tears. "I told the truth," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I finally told the truth." "What truth? What are you talking about? Are you okay? Did someone?" I don't remember exactly." She swayed slightly, and I grabbed her elbow to steady her. "I was talking to someone, and then I was here, and I..." She looked down at her hands as if they belonged to someone else. "What did I say?" My stomach dropped. "Sarah, you're scaring me. Who were you talking to? What happened in the last half hour?" She looked up at me with eyes full of tears and something else, fear. "I don't know," she said. "I really don't know. But everyone was staring at me. I think I said something terrible." Sunlight stabbed through the gaps in our bedroom curtains like an accusation. I'd been awake for hours, watching Sarah sleep, her face puffy from crying and alcohol, her breathing deep and troubled. We'd left the party shortly after I found her in that stairwell. She'd been too disoriented, too upset to stay. Our friends had watched us leave with expressions ranging from concern to something that looked uncomfortably like pity. I tried asking her what happened during the taxi ride home. She'd just shaken her head, pressing her fingers against her temples. Everything's fuzzy. Like trying to remember a dream. I was talking, and people were listening, and then, nothing. Just fragments. Now, as she finally stirred awake, groaning at the light, I had to fight the urge to immediately demand answers to questions that had kept me up all night. "Water," she croaked, and I handed her the glass I'd prepared hours ago along with 2 aspirin. She downed both gratefully, then fell back against the pillows with a pained expression. "Oh God. Last night. What do you remember?" She closed her eyes. "Bits and pieces. The party was great, everyone was having fun. I was drinking, too much, clearly. I remember talking to Thomas about his divorce, feeling really sad for him. Then Jennifer said something funny, and I remember laughing. And then..." She frowned, concentrating. "Then I was in this stairwell, and you were there, and I felt like the world was ending, but I didn't know why. My phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. And again. A flurry of messages lighting up the screen on my nightstand. Sarah heard it too, her eyes going wide with dread. "Maybe don't," she whispered. "Not yet." But I was already reaching for it. 7 messages. 3 missed calls. All from different people at the party. The first was from David. "Hey man, is Sarah okay? That was intense last night. Here if you guys need to talk. Jennifer, OMG, is she alright?" I had no idea she felt that way. "We should get coffee this week. Just us girls. She needs support RN. Monica, I'm so sorry you're going through this. I always thought you two were solid. Call me if you need anything." My hands felt numb. "Sarah, what the hell happened?" She grabbed the phone from me, scrolling through the messages, her face losing all color. What did I do?" "They're talking like..." She didn't finish the sentence. Another message popped up, this one from Thomas. "Last night was probably the bravest thing I've ever seen anyone do. I know it wasn't easy to share that. Your secret is safe with me. Thomas." I said, unable to keep the edge from my voice. "You told Thomas something." "I don't remember." Sarah's voice cracked with frustration and fear. "I remember talking to him about his ex-wife, how she'd been having an affair, how betrayed he felt. I was sympathizing because..." She stopped abruptly. "Because what?" "I don't know. I don't remember where I was going with that thought." My phone rang. "Jennifer." Sarah looked at me with pleading eyes, but I answered anyway. "Hey." Jennifer's voice was gentle, cautious. "How is she this morning?" Confused. "She doesn't remember what happened." A pause. "You mean she doesn't remember what she said?" "To everyone." "What did she say, Jennifer?" Another pause, longer this time. "She didn't tell you?" "I mean, I guess she was pretty drunk. Maybe she genuinely doesn't." Jennifer sighed. "Look, this feels like something you two should discuss privately. But she told a bunch of people at the party that she's been in love with someone else for the past 2 years. She didn't say who, but she was crying, saying she couldn't keep living a lie anymore." The room tilted. Sarah was staring at me, reading my expression, and I watched her face crumble. "That's not..." She started, reaching for me, but I stood up, needing space. "Let me call you back, Jennifer," I said, ending the call. "I would never say that," Sarah whispered. "Even drunk, I would never. I'm not in love with someone else. You have to believe me." "Then what did you say? What is everyone talking about?" "I don't know." She was crying now, full sobs. "I'm telling you, I don't remember." My phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from someone I barely knew, Rebecca, one of Sarah's newer friends. "I hope you both find peace with whatever you decide." What she shared about her past was heartbreaking. No one should have to carry that alone. Her past. Now I was completely lost. I showed Sarah the message. She read it 3 times, her brow furrowed in concentration. My past. What about my past? Before I could respond, there was a knock at our apartment door. Sharp. Insistent. We looked at each other. Are you expecting someone? I asked. She shook her head. The knocking continued. I went to the door, peering through the peephole. Thomas stood in the hallway, looking agitated. It's Thomas, I called back to Sarah. Don't, she said immediately. Please don't let him in. I don't. I'm not ready. But Thomas had already heard voices. Please, he called through the door. We need to talk about what she told me. This is important. It's about what happened to her in college. Sarah went absolutely still. College, she whispered. I opened the door just enough to block Thomas from entering, his anxious face filling the narrow gap. He looked like he hadn't slept either, his usually neat hair disheveled, his button-down shirt wrinkled. This isn't a good time, I said firmly. Sarah doesn't remember what she said last night, and she's not feeling well. Thomas's expression shifted from agitation to genuine confusion. She doesn't remember any of it. He tried to peer past me into the apartment. But she was so specific. The details about her roommate, about reporting it to the dean, about how they dismissed her. What are you talking about? Sarah appeared behind me, wrapped in a blanket, her face pale but her voice steady. What roommate? What dean? Now Thomas looked genuinely alarmed. You told me about the assault. At college. You said you'd never told anyone before, that you'd buried it for 15 years, but that it was eating you alive. You said your roommate found you afterwards and helped you file a report, but the guy was on the lacrosse team and the dean swept it under the rug. He was speaking rapidly, earnestly, as if saying it faster might make her remember. You said it was why you can't stand being at parties sometimes, why you drink too much, why you... Stop. Sarah's voice cut through his words like a blade. I was never assaulted. I never filed any report. I never. She faltered, looking at me with wild eyes. I don't have a roommate in my past that fits that description. My college roommate was Amanda Chen, and we never, nothing like that ever happened. Thomas stepped back as if she'd slapped him. But you were crying. You were so detailed. You even described what you were wearing that night, a blue sundress with yellow flowers. Sarah's face went strange. I have a dress like that. Had. I wore it to a party junior year. She pressed her hands to her temples. But nothing happened. It was just a normal party, wasn't it? My stomach churned with competing emotions, relief that at least one version of last night's confessions seemed to be false, confusion about why she'd invent such a traumatic story, and a creeping unease that maybe there was something she'd blocked out. But the way she was looking at me, genuinely confused and frightened, didn't seem like someone confronting a repressed memory. It seemed like someone being told about a life they'd never lived. I think you should go, I told Thomas, not unkindly. Sarah needs space to figure this out. He nodded slowly, backing away. I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you both that if you needed help finding a therapist, or if you wanted to report it now, I have resources. But if it's not... He trailed off, clearly as confused as we were. I'm sorry, he said again, then left. I closed the door and turned to find Sarah sitting on the floor, her back against the couch, staring at nothing. I need to know what I said, she whispered. To everyone. We need to call them all. Over the next 2 hours, we did exactly that. Each conversation added another piece to a puzzle that made less sense the more complete it became. Jennifer insisted Sarah had confessed to being in love with someone else, specifically saying, I can't keep pretending anymore. Every day with him is a lie. But when pressed for more details, Jennifer admitted Sarah hadn't actually named who she was in love with. I just assumed it was someone at the office. You got kind of defensive when I asked who, and then you ran off. David had a completely different story. According to him, Sarah had pulled him aside and told him she'd embezzled money from her previous job, almost $50,000, and that she was terrified she'd be caught. "You made me promise not to tell anyone," he said over speakerphone. "You said you'd pay it back eventually, but that you needed it for something important. Medical bills, I think you said." "I've never stolen anything in my life," Sarah protested. "And we don't have any major medical bills. This is insane." Monica's version was equally bizarre. Sarah had apparently confessed that she'd been married before me, to someone named Ryan who died in a car accident. "You said you never told him," Monica said, meaning me, "because you were afraid he'd think you were damaged goods. You were sobbing, saying you felt guilty for being happy again." "I've never been married before," Sarah said, her voice hollow. "There was no Ryan. There was no car accident." Rebecca, when we finally reached her, had the most disturbing tale. Sarah had allegedly told her that she was secretly pregnant, had been for almost 4 months, and that she'd scheduled an abortion without telling me because she knew I wanted kids and she couldn't bear to disappoint me. "I'm not pregnant," Sarah said flatly after ending that call. She looked at me. "You know I'm not. We've been trying for a year. If I was pregnant, I'd be thrilled." I nodded numbly. We'd been tracking her cycle, doing everything right. The negative tests each month had been devastating for both of us. We sat in silence, the weight of all these impossible confessions pressing down on us. Sarah had apparently spent 30 minutes at her own birthday party telling different people different traumatic secrets, none of which were true, and she couldn't remember any of it. "It's like someone else was wearing my skin," she finally said. "Or like I was possessed or something." She laughed, but it sounded brittle. "That sounds crazy. I sound crazy." "You're not crazy." But even as I said it, a cold finger of doubt traced my spine. What if she was having some kind of breakdown? What if the drinking had triggered something psychological? My phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. "You don't know me, but I was at the party last night. I think you need to know what your wife actually said. Can we meet? This is urgent." I showed Sarah the message. Her hands were shaking as she read it. "Should we?" she asked. I looked at my wife, this woman I'd loved for over a decade, who I thought I knew completely, and realized I had no idea anymore. "Yes," I said. "We need answers." The coffee shop was nearly empty on a Sunday afternoon, just a barista scrolling through his phone and an elderly man doing a crossword puzzle in the corner. We'd chosen a public place, both of us uneasy about meeting a stranger with information about Sarah's blackout confessions. The woman who walked in was younger than I expected, mid-20s maybe, with sharp features and an intensity in her eyes that immediately put me on edge. She spotted us and walked over without hesitation. "Sarah?" she asked, though she was looking right at my wife. "I'm Kayla. We met last night." Sarah studied her face with a frown. "I'm sorry, I don't remember you." "You wouldn't. You were pretty far gone by the time we talked." Kayla sat down without being invited, setting her phone face up on the table. "But I remember every word you said to me. And I recorded it." My pulse quickened. "You recorded a private conversation at a party." "I record everything at parties," Kayla said matter-of-factly. "You'd be amazed what people confess when they're drunk. Usually it's just good gossip, but last night." She looked at Sarah with something that might have been sympathy or might have been fascination. "Last night was different." "Play it," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Whatever I said, I need to know." Kayla tapped her phone, and after a moment, audio began playing. The background noise of the party was there, music, laughter, conversation, but then Sarah's voice cut through, slurred but clear. "You seem nice. Can I tell you something? A secret?" There was a pause. Kayla's voice, sounding friendly and encouraging. "Of course, what's up?" "I've been lying to everyone. All night. Well, not lying exactly. More like trying on different truths. Seeing what fits." Sarah's recorded voice had a strange quality to it. Dreamy, disconnected. "I told Thomas the first was assaulted in college because I wanted to see if saying it out loud would make it feel real. Like maybe that's why I'm so messed up, you know? But it's not true. Nothing happened to me in college. My heart hammered in my chest. Kayla's expression remained neutral as the recording continued. And I told Jennifer I'm in love with someone else because sometimes I wonder if that would be easier. If there was a reason I feel so empty sometimes that wasn't my fault. But I'm not in love with anyone else. I love my husband. I think. I'm supposed to, right? Sarah beside me had gone absolutely rigid, staring at the phone. I told David I stole money because I wanted him to look at me like I was interesting instead of just Sarah, the boring one with the boring job. And Monica, God, I told Monica I was married before and my husband died. Can you imagine? I killed off an imaginary man just to make my life seem more dramatic. The recorded Sarah laughed, but it was hollow. I told Rebecca I'm pregnant and getting an abortion because that's the kind of secret that makes people really pay attention, you know? The kind that makes you matter. There was a rustling sound, movement. Then Sarah's voice again, quieter now. The truth is so much more boring. The truth is I'm just empty. I'm 35 years old, and I don't know who I am. I have a husband who loves me, a job that pays well, friends who care about me, and I feel nothing. Nothing. Just this big, empty space where a person should be. And I can't tell anyone that because I feel empty isn't a real problem. It's not trauma. It's not drama. It's just nothing. The recording went silent except for background party noise. Then Sarah's voice once more, barely audible. I wanted to tell the truth tonight. I really did. But I don't know what my truth is anymore. So I tried on everyone else's tragedies instead. Isn't that pathetic? Kayla stopped the recording. The coffee shop seemed too quiet, the barista's phone too loud, the elderly man's pencil scratching against paper too sharp. Sarah was crying silently, tears streaming down her face, not bothering to wipe them away. I didn't know what to say. I felt like I'd just watched someone dissect my wife and wasn't sure I recognized the pieces. Why didn't you tell anyone this? Kayla asked, not unkindly. Why let everyone think all those other things were true? Because I didn't remember, Sarah whispered. I honestly didn't remember any of it. But hearing it now. She pressed her hands over her face. Oh God, I do. I remember saying all of it. I remember the stairwell. I went there after talking to you because I suddenly realized what I'd done. I'd told all these lies to all these people, and I couldn't take them back, and I wanted to disappear. I found my voice. Why didn't you just tell me that you've been feeling empty, or lost, or whatever this is? Why make up all these elaborate stories? She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before, not exactly fear, but something close to it. Because empty isn't interesting. Empty doesn't get sympathy or help. Empty is just lazy. Ungrateful. I have everything I'm supposed to want. What right do I have to feel empty? That's not, I started, but she cut me off. Isn't it though? If I told Jennifer I was feeling depressed, she'd tell me to exercise more. If I told Monica I felt lost, she'd say I need a hobby. If I told David I felt like I was disappearing, he'd make a joke about it. But if I tell them I was assaulted, or I'm in love with someone else, or I've done something terrible, then they pay attention. Then it's real. Kayla leaned forward. For what it's worth, I think what you told me, the real truth, is the most interesting thing I heard all night. Everyone feels empty sometimes. But not everyone is brave enough to admit it. Brave. Sarah laughed bitterly. I told the truth to a stranger while blackout drunk because I was too cowardly to tell it sober. You told it though, Kayla insisted. And now you can't tell it. So what are you going to do about it? Sarah looked at me helplessly, and I realized this was my moment to say something profound, something healing, something that would fix this. But I felt strangely empty myself, like I'd been married to someone I didn't really know, or maybe someone who didn't really know herself. Thank you for meeting us, I finally said to Kayla. For recording that. For showing us the truth. Kayla nodded, standing. I hope you figure it out. Both of you. She left her coffee untouched and walked out. Sarah and I sat in silence for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice small. "Do you hate me?" "No," I said automatically. Then, more honestly, "I don't know what I feel. I'm trying to process the fact that my wife has been feeling empty for God knows how long and I never noticed. It's not your fault. And I'm trying to figure out what we do now. Because clearly something needs to change." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I think I need help. Like, professional help." "Okay. We'll find someone. And I think I need to tell everyone the truth. The real truth. Not about feeling empty, that's too." She struggled for the word. "That's too abstract. But I need to admit I made up those stories. I need to own what I did." "That's going to be hard." "I know." We sat there a while longer, neither of us quite ready to leave the relative safety of the coffee shop for the real world waiting outside. Finally, Sarah reached across the table and took my hand. "I do love you," she said. That part wasn't a lie or a question or me trying on a feeling. "I love you." "I love you too," I said, and meant it. But I also knew that love alone wasn't going to fix whatever was broken here. We had work to do, hard, uncomfortable work that would require both of us to be honest in ways we'd been avoiding. As we walked out into the autumn afternoon, my phone buzzed one more time. "Jennifer, just checking in. We're all worried about Sarah. Is it true about the other man? We're here for you both no matter what." I showed Sarah the message. She took a deep breath. "Here we go," she said, and started typing a response. The group email took Sarah 3 hours to write. I watched her delete and restart it at least a dozen times, each draft trying to find the right balance between explanation and apology, between vulnerability and dignity. She finally settled on something simple and direct. "Dear everyone who was at my birthday party, I owe you all an explanation and an apology. Last night, I told different people different stories, about being assaulted in college, about embezzling money, about being in love with someone else, about secret pregnancies and secret marriages. None of these stories were true. I was very drunk, which explains the memory loss but doesn't excuse the lies. The truth is, I've been struggling with feelings of emptiness and identity loss that I didn't know how to articulate or address. Instead of being honest about this very ordinary form of unhappiness, I invented dramatic tragedies that seemed more worthy of attention and sympathy. This was wrong. I hurt and confused people who care about me. I put my husband through hell. I made a spectacle of very serious issues that real people actually suffer through. I'm deeply sorry. I'm getting professional help to work through whatever is going on with me. In the meantime, please disregard everything I said last night except this. I'm struggling, and I'm sorry for handling it so poorly. With apologies and gratitude for your patience. Sarah." She hovered over the send button for a full minute before finally pressing it. Then she closed her laptop and buried her face in her hands. "What if they hate me?" she asked, her voice muffled. "Some of them might," I said honestly. "What you did was hurtful. And confusing. And kind of manipulative, even if you didn't mean it that way." She looked up at me, her eyes red. "I really didn't mean it that way." In my head, in the moment, wherever my head was, it felt like I was just trying to explain why I felt so wrong all the time. Like if I could just find the right story, the right trauma, it would all make sense. "But there doesn't have to be a big trauma for you to feel bad," I said, sitting beside her. "People get depressed. People have identity crises. It doesn't make it less real just because there isn't some dramatic origin story. I know that now. Or I'm starting to." She leaned against me, and I put my arm around her. "When did everything get so complicated?" The responses started coming in within an hour. Jennifer's was first. "Thank you for being honest. I wish you'd just told me you were struggling. I would have listened. I'm hurt, but I understand. Call me when you're ready." David's was more pointed. "That was a really messed up thing to do. I spent all night worrying I was harboring a criminal. But I appreciate the apology. Hope you get the help you need." Monica sent a short message. "I'm here when you want to talk. The real stuff, not made-up stories. Thomas didn't respond to the email but showed up at our door that evening with a bag from our favorite Thai restaurant. "I'm not here for explanations or apologies," he said when I opened the door. "I'm here because someone I care about is having a hard time, and I remember how isolating that can be." Sarah cried when she saw him, not the dramatic, performative tears from the night before, but quiet, grateful tears. We ate pad thai on the couch and watched a stupid comedy, not talking about the party or the confessions or any of it. It was the first time in days that Sarah seemed to breathe easily. After Thomas left, Sarah looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Why aren't you angrier?" she asked. "I humiliated you. I made everyone think our marriage was falling apart. You should be furious." I thought about it. I am angry. Or I was. Maybe I will be again. But right now, I'm more worried than angry. "You're not okay, Sarah. You haven't been for a while, and I missed it. We both missed it. It's not your job to fix me." "No, but it's my job to notice when you're drowning. And I didn't. I just assumed everything was fine because you kept saying it was fine." She was quiet for a moment. I got really good at saying things were fine. At being the person everyone expected me to be. Reliable Sarah. Stable Sarah. Sarah who has her shit together. She laughed bitterly. Turns out that person was just a really convincing performance. So who's the real Sarah? I don't know yet. That's what scares me. I'm 35 years old, and I feel like I'm meeting myself for the first time. Over the next few weeks, things slowly shifted into a new normal. Sarah started seeing a therapist twice a week, a woman named Dr. Patterson who specialized in identity issues and depression. I went with her sometimes, working through my own feelings about the party and the lies and the realization that our marriage had been missing a foundation of real honesty. Some friendships survived. Jennifer and Sarah eventually had a long, tearful coffee date where they talked about the pressure women feel to always be okay, to always have it together. Monica sent care packages with funny cards and no expectations. Other friendships didn't make it. Rebecca stopped responding to messages. David was cordial but distant. A few people from the party unfriended Sarah on social media, which hurt more than she wanted to admit. "I broke something," she told me one night, a month after the party. "With those lies. I broke trust, and some people can't get past that. I have to accept that." "You're being too hard on yourself." Maybe. Or maybe I'm being honest for the first time in years. I did something shitty. I hurt people. The fact that I was struggling doesn't erase that. 3 months after the party, on a cold February evening, we had some of Sarah's friends over for dinner. A smaller group now, just Jennifer, Monica, and Thomas. The conversation flowed easily, without the performative quality that had defined so many of our social gatherings before. At one point, Jennifer asked Sarah how therapy was going. "It's hard," Sarah admitted, not deflecting or minimizing. "I'm learning that I've been running from myself for a long time. I built this whole identity around being low maintenance and easy to be around, and somewhere along the way, I lost track of who I actually was underneath all that." "Are you finding her?" Monica asked gently. "The real you?" Sarah smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "I'm trying. Some days are better than others. But at least I'm trying honestly now, instead of just trying on different personas to see which one gets the best reaction." After everyone left, Sarah and I cleaned up the kitchen together in comfortable silence. As she loaded the dishwasher, she suddenly stopped and looked at me. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For staying. For not giving up on me when I clearly didn't have my shit together. For not making this about you when I was the one who messed up." I set down the plate I was drying and pulled her close. "You know what I've realized? That night at the party, the confessions, the lies, all of it, it was the most honest you'd been in years. Not about facts, but about how you were actually feeling. You were screaming that something was wrong the only way you knew how. That's what Dr. Patterson says too. She calls it a maladaptive cry for help." Sarah laughed softly. "Fancy words for I had a drunken breakdown and hurt people I care about." Both things can be true. Yeah, she agreed. Both things can be true. 6 months after the party, Sarah made a decision that surprised both of us. She quit her job. The reliable, stable position at the accounting firm that had defined her adult life. She didn't have a plan, exactly, but she had a therapist who supported the decision and a husband who had learned to trust that sometimes people need to fall apart to put themselves back together properly. I've been performing competence for so long I forgot to figure out what I actually want to be competent at, she explained. This job was supposed to be temporary, a stepping stone to something else. But I got comfortable. And comfortable turned into trapped. She spent the summer trying different things, volunteering at an animal shelter, taking a pottery class, learning to code, reading obsessively. Not searching for her purpose with a capital P, but just exploring who she was when she wasn't trying to be anyone in particular. 1 year after the party, we threw a small gathering, not a big birthday bash, just a handful of people we genuinely wanted to spend time with. Sarah had a single glass of wine all evening and spent most of the night in an animated conversation with Jennifer about potentially starting a business together. As I watched her laugh, really laugh, the kind of laugh that comes from genuine joy rather than social performance, I realized how much had changed. She still struggled sometimes with feelings of emptiness and uncertainty. But now she talked about them, worked through them, didn't try to manufacture dramatic explanations for ordinary human suffering. Later that night, as we got ready for bed, Sarah caught my eye in the bathroom mirror. "You know what the weirdest part is," she said. "I spent that whole night trying on different truths, looking for the one that would make sense of how I felt. But the real truth, the boring, undramatic truth, ended up being the most freeing one. Which is that I was lost, and scared, and didn't know how to ask for help." She turned to face me. Not very exciting for a party confession, but honest. I pulled her close, kissing her forehead. "Honest is good. Honest, we can work with." She smiled against my shoulder. Yeah, we can." And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I believed that everything, messy and complicated and uncertain as it was going to be okay. Not because we'd found some grand solution or dramatic revelation, but because we'd finally learned to tell each other the truth. Even when that truth was simply, "I'm struggling, and I need help." Sometimes, that's the bravest confession of all.